Hello. So today we're gonna do a little Richard Layman exploration, and this actually came at like a perfect time because I haven't read all of Richard Layman's books. I've read these ones, but this morning I finished up Everybody's Favorite by Lillian Stone, and I went to my book cart and I randomized, and the next book I picked up was Into the Fire by Richard Layman. So I am actively reading another Richard Layman book right now. I'm only one chapter in, but yeah, let's go. Like I said, I haven't read all of Richard Layman's books. He's actually got quite a few out. He's dead, which is very sad. But for those of you who do not know, Richard Layman is a kind of one of your earlier splatterpunk authors. He started publishing in the 80s, and he died, I want to say, in like the early 2000s sometime. He was not very old. But yeah, Richard Layman's books are full of just some of the grossest shit you can imagine. It's not like your current splatterpunk with like Aaron Beauregard, where it's extremely graphic all the time, but just the way that Layman is describes this stuff is just weird. And it is, I mean, there's definitely a lot of dark stuff in here, lots of sexual assault. If you cannot do that, if you cannot read about that, stay far away from this man. Far away. He also, in every single book, the word rump, it's his favorite word, I swear to God. 5 pages in, first instance. But first up, I'm gonna go through the books of his that I have read. I'm gonna synopsize them each a little bit, tell you what I thought about them, and then I'm gonna talk about Richard Layman in general, like the patterns I've noticed. I do have a couple more of his books in the book wall, and I am obviously reading one right now, and I plan to get his other books and read them all. They do definitely have some similar themes that I've noticed in the 10 or so that I have read. So first, let's talk about Beast House. So Beast House, it's a series, and this is actually books 1, 2, and then like novella 4. I haven't read book 3. I actually read the second book, Beast House, first, which was a mistake. So we got the first book, The Cellar, the second book, Beast House, the third book, which is, let's see what that one's called, because I don't actually know. Beast House. The third one is The Midnight Tour, and then the fourth book is Friday Night in Beast House. So what this series is concerned with, I'm gonna hold up The Cellar's first book. So this first book, it starts off following this woman and her daughter who find out that her abusive ex-husband is out of prison, and so she takes her daughter and from their home, and she just drives because she knows that he's gonna come after them, and he does. Unfortunately, the place that she ends up going is this small town in California that has one attraction, the Beast House, which is this house where supposedly there's the beasts that have come and killed people, and it's like a wax museum, and they have like wax sculptures of all the people that have been killed. And when they do meet a man, because most of the victims of the Beast House are young women who get, raped by the beast. There's a lot of beast sex, and most of the people that we focus on are these young women. But the one person that is not one is who was like a 12 or 13-year-old boy who him and his friend were in the Beast House, and he escaped. And his friend is both of them are wax sculptures in the house. But I believe, if I'm remembering right, that the guy that we meet in here, his like sculptures like either like outside, like looking up in terror. Anyway, obviously, the ex-husband comes in and ends up like getting all sorts of all sorts of creepy up in here. But then there's also the beasts, which are very real and very much so have sex with women. And the thing about these Beast House and the beast sex is that once you have had sex with the beast, you want more, and that leads us into book 2, which has entirely different characters apart from like the Beast House and the people in the Beast House, because we do see the surviving characters of book 1 and book 2 a little bit. And if I remember right, book 3, the only thing that connects it is the Beast House. So that's Beast House. Next up, we've got Body Rides, which is about this man who is driving home, and he sees a woman naked and tied to a tree. And he's like, he shoots the man that has tied her to this tree, and she gives him this bracelet that lets him go into other people's bodies and like experience life as them. But the person that he shot is not dead. And what was weird about this one is that had a weird romantic element to it. A lot of these books do kind of play at romance, but this one was a lot heavier than a lot of the other ones. It was it was weird. The romance was a little bit heavy-handed, a little bit creepy, but it was weird. Not one of my favorites, but it does have the kind of charm, if you could say that all of his other books have. Next, One Rainy Night, which follows this town after a hate crime has been committed. Some football players like attacked, I believe killed a young black teenager, and this black teenager's father or grandfather, I can't remember, puts a voodoo curse on the town, and this black rain falls, and if this rain touches you, you just go absolutely crazy and want to start hurting people and killing people and everything like that until it gets washed off of you. Like if you go in, like if somebody can force you into the shower, you'll be sane again. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot going on. This one really felt like Layman wanted an excuse to throw everything in one book, because that's really what he did. He's like, oh, like I could do this, I could do this, I could do this, or all these people could do all these terrible things to each other. That sounds great. It was entertaining. I very rarely give any of these books less than 4 stars because objectively speaking, they're terrible and they're weird and they're sexist, and this one's racist. But if you were looking for pulpy, the pulpiest of pulp horrors, this man right here. And it's because all these people are doing all these terrible things. It's like there's so much happening in this book, and we follow. There's there's like a romantic subplot in here where like this, I believe he's a police officer who's like trying to find like the pizza waitress that he's been like in love with for months and stuff like that. We got these teenage boys who like go who end up across the pizza waitress after they get rained on. A lot going on. Then it's very similar. We've got Come Out Tonight, which is this one actually had a lot of good atmosphere for me. This one felt like the way it was written just felt like this really like hot, sticky, like almost cinematic bad city. But this follows this young woman who her and her boyfriend are gonna have sex, and they found out they don't have any condoms. So her boyfriend's like, I'm gonna hop down to like the convenience store and grab some, I'll be back soon. But he leaves and she hears what could be a gunshot, and he doesn't come back. And then things just go. And there's this guy, Toby Bones, and I believe there's something with her younger sister her younger sister gets involved in this. There's a lot going on. This one smells fantastic. That's just my copy though. Like, when books get that smell, that really certain, oh, it's so good. This one was, honestly, in my head, I put these two together a lot just because both of them have a lot of like similar vibes. This one's much better. Just like I said, like the atmosphere is fantastic. It just the beginning where what's her name? Sherry's like going out into this city. It just feels hot and sticky and like weird, like off. It's so good. I gave this one 5 stars, didn't I? No, just 4. Then we got my first Richard Layman book, which was Savage. This one's weird. I don't know why I started with this one. This one is very unlike all of his other books. This one is a Jack the Ripper story. This one follows this kid, and he's in Whitechapel when Jack the Ripper is like killing people, and he is under the bed of Jack the Ripper's last victim as he kills her. Then he ends up following Jack the Ripper on a boat to America. Stay with me. And ends up like chasing him. Eventually, like Jack the Ripper like catches him. Jack the Ripper actually like kills everybody on this boat. It's insane. And it's just his tale trying to kill Jack the Ripper. And we end up meeting this girl who's like an outlaw, and she's dressed as a boy at first. I think, if I'm remembering right, is my first Richard Layman book. I read it 2 years ago. it was insane. It's like it's very unlike all of his other stuff. It's historical. It takes place in 1888, which is so weird because all of his other stuff is very like vaguely late 20th century. But yeah, I don't know if it's the right one to start with because I don't think it's really all that indicative of all this stuff. It does say the word rump 7,000 times, but it's very different than his other stuff. It's very different. Just I think the time period alone changes it drastically. And if you read this one first and you read something else, it's not going to feel like the same thing. Then we've got my favorite. I should save this one for last. Save my favorite one for last. Then we've got one that actually kind of disappointed me. I'm not going to lie. I gave this one 3 stars, and I thought I was going to love it. It's called Funland. This one is about this town where there is a massive homeless problem on the pier, and there's this place called Funland, like it's like an amusement park kind of thing, and these teenagers have decided that they're gonna beat up these homeless people and like hurt them and chase them away. I thought it was gonna be so much more fun than it was. We follow our romantic subplot in this one because we always have one. There are actually a couple. There is one that's about like this like new guy in town who kind of falls in with this crowd, and then there's also this like busker who like is like playing guitar, and she ends up hooking up with one of the guys who was in this group of people that were beating up homeless people, and he kind of starts to run away from that after that, but then this girl gets jealous and everything like that. I will say the end sequence in like this carnival house of horrors was pretty good, but I don't know, this one did disappoint me. I would like to reread it because I don't know if maybe I would like it more a second time around, but yeah, I had really high hopes for this one and it kind of disappointed me. On the other hand, this is my favorite Richard Laymon book. I've read it twice. It's so good. By so good, I mean so bad shit. It's bad shit. In the dark. So, okay, stay with me. This was one of my favorite books last year, I'm not gonna lie. So, this book is about this librarian named Jane who one day she is closing up the library and she finds this note that says that leads her to a certain book, gives her money, and it's like a game that she's gonna play with this man, and that she doesn't actually know it's a man, but she kind of figures, and it is that she keeps doing weirder and weirder and more dangerous stuff for more and more money. Each time the money doubles. And as she's doing this, she runs into this guy named Brace, who's the most useless man in the universe, and I love him a lot. And she ends up just so sucked into this game of cat and mouse with this guy, and doing all these more dangerous things. Like it starts off stuff that's even like just like slightly dangerous, like climbing a statue, which is dangerous, but it's not like murdering people who have women who have been tortured and eating themselves and other people strapped down in their giant mansion, which happens later. So much happens. It's insane. And I love Jane as a main character. I think she has just a single-minded determinedness that is, I love her. I love her a lot. And I love Brace. Brace is her love interest. Brace is useless. His name is Brace. Brace. He is so useless. He does nothing. Later in the book, he gets kidnapped. He does nothing. He's absolutely useless. He's great. I love him a lot. Like I said, like this one's absolutely bad. So much happens, and Jane is so single-minded. Like, I'm gonna get this money, and later I'm gonna kill this man. I love her. I've read this book twice. I loved it desperately both times. Now let's talk about some common themes in Richard Laymon's works. Obviously, you've got sexual assault. Every single book. Yes. This one has a lesbian sexual assault, which was weird. Yes. I actually don't remember, but I'm pretty sure. It starts with a woman tied naked to a tree, of course. Yeah, yes. And very obviously, it's only been implied in this one so far, but I am only 8 pages in. So obviously that's going to happen. That happens in all the Richard Laymon books. If you are not comfortable with that, never read. Just stay far away from this man. I'm picture up. He's dead, so it doesn't really matter. Physically, you can stay as far away from his grave as you want, but his books, stay away from this man's books because that's going to happen in every single one. The word rump, as I've said, it's his favorite word. He loves it a lot. He does have, I've noticed lots of, the ones that have been kind of fun, like, I grew up on Stephen King. I started my first Stephen King book at the age of 12. It was The Stand. It took me a long time. But one thing that I liked in Stephen King was I always liked his town books, where he's got a town, like Needful Things. We've got a town where all this stuff happens. And that's really fun in layman too. So like stuff like One Rainy Night, well, it's objectively speaking terrible and racist. The fact that it's this massive town book where we see lots of different characters is super fun. We've also always got these disgusting little men, who are, all the men are disgusting except for Brace. Brace is not disgusting. Brace is the only non-disgusting man in all of Richard Laymon's books. Maybe that's why I like him so much, because even our heroes a lot of the time are really gross, but Brace isn't. Brace is a college professor who likes an age-appropriate woman. And he's useless. I love Brace. Brace is the only good man. He's the only good man in these books. He's absolutely useless. But even like our heroes, like in Body Rides, we've got a very adult man, I believe he's in his 30s or maybe even 40s, who ends up like hooking up with like this teenage, like if she's legal, she's barely legal, like the waitress. And he's the hero, you know, and that's like a major romance in this book. So all the men are completely disgusting. A lot of the times, they're almost described to look like Mr. Layman himself. So obviously I never met Richard Layman. I know nothing about Richard Layman as a person. But that's a little weird, right? That's a little weird. To write yourself into, to write your physical characteristics into books like that. But yeah, they're disgusting men. What else is common in these books? We've got mutilation a lot of the time. The gore is pretty, it's not as intense as something like, say, Aaron Beauregard. For me, when I'm reading Richard Layman, I don't really, the gore is never really all that intense for me personally. If you don't read a lot of horror, it might be different. But it's really the feelings behind it that Layman is so good at expressing. He's really good at that. And like I said, like the atmosphere in Come Out Tonight was just delicious. And I think, honestly, that that's because of how that feels, like, of how it feels to the characters. I don't know. This book in terms of atmosphere is fantastic. I love it so much. What else is common in his books? When it comes to the writing, they're not especially poorly written. I mean, they're very pulpy. They're very, 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 very pulpy. I will say, like, they're like Halloween by David Robbins. I don't know why that's like for me, that's my epitome of pulp horror, is Halloween by David Robbins. Where to start? I would honestly say probably something like Come Out Tonight, because I think, objectively speaking, it's relatively well written. Like I said, the atmosphere, so good. It's got obvious sexual assault in there all the time, so much. But it really does, it kind of lays out on the table what Layman does, this book does. And it doesn't overwhelm you like, say, Beast House, or, as much as it's my favorite, In the Dark is overwhelming. I think it's his best book. But there's a lot, it's big, and it's just the house with the cannibal ladies. There's a lot, like, there's a lot in this book that I think this one might be easier to get into at first, especially if you're not a big horror fan. Don't read Richard Layman. I think he's very much like, if you're trying to get into splatterpunk and you want to start with the classics, yes. Don't start with Savage, because like the guy did, that was dumb of me. That was really dumb of me. Maybe Funland even would be an okay one to start with. This was, I think, my second one, but it disappointed me. But again, I want to reread it because it might not disappoint me the second time. I believe this one references Beast House too. I know there are a couple that I think Beast House is referenced very frequently. I know there are a lot of Richard Layman books that I haven't read that are very popular, like The Woods Are Dark. that one, I'll put a picture. I have it in the book wall, and I know that one is, I think it's either his first book or one of his first books, and it's everywhere. People talk a lot with Layman, but I really enjoy Layman. I know that he's disgusting, and his stuff is really leans on sexual assault for a lot of its horror, and everybody's terrible, and except for Brace, my man Brace. But I am just insanely entertained by everything I've read from this man. Like I said, like the lowest rating I've ever given his books is a 3, and I'm pretty sure Funland is the lowest rated I've ever given his books. There's always so much going on. And in terms of really extreme horror, Richard Layman, he is a classic. He's up there when people are talking about your classic splatterpunk. It's Richard Layman and Jack Ketchum. I've read much more Richard Layman than I have Jack Ketchum. I've read The Lost and The Girl Next Door from Ketchum, and I've enjoyed them both. I really like Ketchum, but Layman, it really gets down there in the dirt with you. Ketchum somehow to me feels a little bit elevated. Not in terms of general fiction, but when you're talking between him and Layman, Ketchum's up here and Layman is all the way down. And it's just the kind of joinery and just something so just nasty. It's gross. Layman is gross. Layman's a real gross. And there's nothing wrong with reading something that's just gross, you know? And that's Layman. Layman is gross. Layman's disgusting. He's a disgusting little man who wrote disgusting little books, and I love them desperately, especially In the Dark. In the Dark is like, I love it a lot. I genuinely adore In the Dark. Not just because of Brace, but because of the main character and all this just batshit stuff that happens. This woman goes to sleep in a coffin in an abandoned. Why is there in this town? Why is there an abandoned house that is like has like a coffin? And I don't know. It's just the way that this house is described. I'm like, why has this place not been knocked down? You know, like there's just the Richard Layman world is a world that nobody wants to live in, but that I really question how it functions, you know. But no, I love In the Dark, and I really enjoy Richard Layman. I do. Just if you know that he's not for you, don't read him. It's like those old like fan fiction like disclaimer, like don't read. Like he's gross. There's a lot of gross stuff happening in Layman's books, but he's very fun if you're into that, and I am into that. But yeah, that's all for today. I don't know how effective this video was. I do hope that I kind of introduce you to Layman a little bit, and if you are into horror, if you are into extreme horror, and if the stuff that I mentioned doesn't bother you, I got most of these off of an eBay. I had a couple of eBay lots, where I typed in Richard Layman paperback lot, and I bought a couple of them. The only one that I think I bought on purpose by itself was Funland, because I had a clown on the front. I thought I was gonna love it, and I didn't, which is really sad for me. Like carnival horror, I love that shit. This one was not as fun. Everything else was like came in a lot of horror paperbacks. Yeah, that's all for today. I'll talk to you later. I hope I love Into the Fire as much. At least I hope it's at least a 4. Most of my Richard Laymans have been 4 stars. This one is 5. But I think everything else. Come Out Tonight is 4. Body Rides is 3. This one was the one that I didn't like as much. One Rainy Night was 4. Funland was 3. Savage was 4. Beast House was 5. I gave Beast House 5 stars. Cellar was 3. And Friday Night in Beast House was 2. Okay, so this one was actually the worst one. 2 out of 5 stars. So I did have given 1 2 stars. That's because this one, it was like nothing. This one read like a Goosebumps book up until there was a graphic rape scene, which was weird to me. So mostly I give them 3 or 4 stars. Get out of the whole jelly jam. I'm mostly giving 3 or 4 stars. With the exception of In the Dark. In the Dark is the only one I've given 5 stars, but I do still, I love Richard Layman. I love him. Yeah, that is all for today. I'll talk to you later, and goodbye.